Let's bring in Greg Sankey. He's the commissioner of the SEC. He took over that title in 2015. Fritzy, how do you have an Ohio State jersey on with the commissioner of the SEC on?
In all honesty, I just grabbed the jersey that I'd be comfortable in sitting here in the house. I should have realized that was a poor decision on my part, but it was not something. I was not taking a shot across the bow at the commissioner.
Sorry about that, Commissioner. Sorry about that.
When are the performance evaluations completed? Because I'd like to have some input there, if I may.
What sports are you watching now?
None. How's that? I'm watching replays of games I attended. I actually watched the CFP National Championship game a couple nights ago. I've been there, and you've been to enough events. When you're at the event, you don't watch the event. You're in the same way. So it was fun to actually go see what I thought happened compared to what actually did happen. We won.
What kind of toll did March Madness not being played have on the SEC?
Well, there's a financial impact, to put that aside. The most emotional moment for me was having to make a recommendation to our presidents and our chancellors that we cancel our men's basketball tournament. If you'll recall, back in 2008, we had a basketball tournament interrupted by a tornado. And we stayed up all night. We made it through. Georgia ends up winning, and they had finished in the bottom half of our standings. And one of those moments for me, and nobody knew who I was back then. I was an associate commissioner walking down a hallway, and there's a Georgia player holding the trophy walking towards me saying over and over, "This is the best day of my life." And that's one of those moments where the tickets, the TV, the attendance kind of goes by the wayside, and you realize the importance of competition. So not being able to play hurt in a very different way. And then the rest of the month, I would call a celebration. That's the enjoyable part of the job, to see teams compete. Last year Auburn's run to the Final Four was really enjoyable, and you hope for a national championship. South Carolina, I think, would have been the number one ranked women's team. So we had an opportunity to win, which is always part of that fun.
We'll get to the NCAA in a moment, but what kind of plan? It feels like every league, every commissioner, there's alternative plans here. Are there alternative plans for college football in the fall?
There's the conversation. Are there? Sure. Is that the focus? No. The focus is on preparing to play as scheduled Labor Day weekend. I think that's an important message publicly. I think it's important for our student athletes to hear from me that we're focused on that preparation. Now, whether or not we can make that happen, that's going to be up to the circumstances around the virus.
But no football with no fans.
Not something I have to decide right now, and not high on my priority list for thinking about. Now, whether the fan patterns look different, that's another question. That again, we've learned a lot in the last 30 to 45 days. We're going to learn a lot more in the next 45 days, and we've got a little over 100 days to the start of what would be football season as scheduled, and that'll guide how we make those decisions.
But I wonder, if you have students on campus, then is there a correlation between that, students on campus, fans in the stands, or is that a big leap there?
I don't think it's a big leap, Dan. I think the first threshold is our campus is moving back towards operation, and you see really on a daily basis universities across the country talking about moving forward with their fall plan. So that's the first step. The patterns and how people enter and leave and where they sit are all those other types of conversations that, is it linked to students being on campus? Sure. Is it directly linked? I don't think you could make the statement that it's all one seamless process.
Explain to me, if you can, in layman's terms, about what you think these athletes are going to be able to capitalize on with their likeness, and how do we keep it above board?
That's a heck of a question. You just boiled it right down to its essence. But let's just take a step back for a second. Remember, a year ago, California is in this debate about its state legislation. The NCAA sends a letter, says, hey, better be careful about championships participation. And a year later, we're talking about operationalizing student athlete name, image, and likeness. So there are some easy elements. If you're read what is a 31-page report, which I haven't had the time to read yet because I first saw it yesterday. One element is businesses, like student athletes operating businesses. Well, Dan, we've had people do that, do it really well. We had a football player, one of our universities, who ran a landscaping business his whole college career, believe it or not, and did quite well. You never knew it. We had another student athlete who played in the NFL, wrote a book, worked with the compliance office, did it in a great way. Now, can you just say we're going to run businesses and all of a sudden the boosters don't, take over and make it a recruiting issue? That's the above board piece.
Yeah.
And that's where there are a lot of questions still to be answered, in my view.
But okay, let's say I own a car dealership and I'm in Athens, Georgia, and I want to say to the quarterback, come on over Saturday's non-football season, and you can sign autographs once a week, and I'm going to pay you $100,000. Is that legal?
Well, that remains to be seen. I'll back you up and say we have a football leadership council where I have taken them through that exercise. I didn't put the $100,000 on it because I'm not sure that's necessarily real world right now. Could that happen? So I'm going to put that hypothetical aside. But I just talked through a room of starters from each of our 14 teams, the process of people reaching out, asking about appearances, asking about showing up at a car dealership, at a restaurant. High value time would be football season. And our student athletes have said to us for years, I don't have enough time in my life right now. They are very good about identifying where they should have this space. But when you actually walk through the exercise of scheduling appearances, having contracts, what's the rate going to be? Where am I going to find the time? We literally ended with a question to me of one, how can my university help me in this process? And that hasn't been answered for us yet. And then the next observation was, I don't know that I want this. And we're talking about high-level competitors saying, you know what, I'm preparing for football. What do we have? 63 guys drafted last week. And I think you've got this tension between the focused competitor and the distractions, and we're going to have to find that balance, quite frankly.
He's the commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. Johnny Manziel, under the new guidelines, would have been allowed to do what Johnny Manziel was doing at Texas A&M, right? Signing autographs?
Well, that's been identified as one of those activities. Yeah, we've had a few of those eruptions over time, but we'll go with that one.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to understand here, because I don't know, how does this benefit college football if you're going to allow these student athletes to capitalize on their likeness? Are we getting away from, hey, you got to pay them? That maybe that question doesn't get asked anymore of Mark Emmert and the NCAA. So I'm trying to figure out what's the benefit for college football.
Well, I think the question is asked. It's asked of Mark. It's asked of the NCAA globally. It's asked of me, and we're not in a pay for play mode, and we've said that as a principle. So this isn't an idea. And let's go back to the California law. The California state law very clearly said, here's the circumstances around this name, image, and likeness activity. Those concepts, by the way, have been out there in different areas, whether it's in media conversation and discussions in lawsuits. So now, what does it mean? It means that an individual gets to go act in their own interest and decide, do I or do I not want to be involved in economic activity? The responsibility of the university is to provide the support basis, be it the scholarship, be it academic support, mental health, but the individual student athlete gets to go function somewhat like a student who wanted to go sell autographs. By the way, I don't see a lot of students out there successfully selling their autographs from our university campuses. So some of these comparatives, I think, get a little bit twisted, if you will.
Fritzy just changed his jersey from Ohio State to LSU. Fritzy, come on.
It's a little peace offering. I don't want to upset the commissioner. I didn't even realize.
It's the Joe Burrow move right there, right? It's the Joe Burrow move.
That's exactly
It started with Andy Dalton in Cincinnati, and we see the impacts playing out live on the show.
I don't want to upset the commissioner.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure he's going to be really upset.
Get your master's degree, too, while you've got that shirt on. Let's be clear about that.
All right. Here's the tough question. If I could only go to one tailgate in the SEC.
Oh, that's like dangerous for me because I have 14 favorite universities.
Just one.
I mean, all that is trouble for me.
I know that. I know that. That's why I said that's the tough question.
Have you ever been to a football game at the University of Montana and like minus 10 degrees. That's a memorable tailgate.
I
if
would
you wanna
love.
try
I
that
would
one.
love to do that. I grew up in Ohio. I'm not afraid of the
Well,
cold.
Ole Miss very clearly has distinguished themselves. If it's caloric intake, you're going to be in Baton Rouge for creative food choices. When you're me, you usually don't walk through a lot of tailgates because there are opinions expressed
Oh,
in their own creative ways.
but do you get booed like the NFL commission? Like, how do fans treat you because you're the commissioner of the
usually,
SEC?
yeah, pretty well. There were when LSU had its celebration. When you're in an authority position, you're going to get a few boos. So I started out with my remarks. There were just a few people in the arena, and I observed that. I asked the question, "What do you think of the first year of beer sales in Tiger Stadium?" And it was like, "Hooray!" So as a commissioner, you got to have those moments when you can turn the criticism into something more positive.
You should also, since you're joining us from, I don't know if that's your den, but your home. I think
My home office.
the angle that you have with your Zoom camera, you need to do sort of like the Batman logo that they would always do, where they would, like you should put an SEC logo above you, like a spotlight that has SEC right above your head there on the ceiling.
Well, I'll tell you what I did for a Zoom call a couple weeks ago. I did have a colleague on, and I have 3 mini CFP championship trophies, and I placed them right over my shoulder here in the background. I didn't do that for you today. I've got some good memorabilia or my Huey Lewis autograph sports poster over here I could have thrown up.
Wait, you got a Huey Lewis autograph poster?
Yeah.
Okay. Why?
It was the 80s, right? you gotta love the 80s. The sports album.
Yeah. Well, and you were a golf coach, weren't you, before? And Huey plays a ton of golf.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Actually, not as long ago as the 80s, but very close to it.
Commissioner, it's great to talk to you, and we appreciate your time. Good luck with navigating. You got some choppy waters there ahead, and I don't envy you, but hopefully we'll be able to get through this.
Yeah. What's clear is we've answered all the easy questions, and only the hard ones are left. So here we go, right?
That's true.
Thank
you, Greg. Thank you. That's the commissioner of the SEC. I appreciate his time.